Hello and welcome to week 6. Wow, we're moving right along. March is almost here. Uh, Last week of February, things are going well. This week is an example on making sure that you get your stuff done and what you plan to do on time. Uh, Hold on a second. Hello. All right. I don't want to talk. They don't want to talk. Okay, so Friday on my way home from work, I was planning on getting home and doing some more messages and participating in the forum a little more. And two deer come jumped out of the darkness and pancaked and suicided themselves along the driver's side of my car. So Saturday, I participated and I said, I'm going to get up early Sunday morning. I'm going to talk to everybody and leave a message to every single person before 6 p.m. Sunday. Well, I got up, I went and fed the cows, I fed the dog, I walked the dog, and then I sat down, opened up my computer, and my phone rang. And it was the warden of my prison telling me that we've had an inmate death and I needed to go to work, which is part of my job. Part of my job is to locate the next of kin, contact the next of kin, let the next of kin know that so and such has passed, and then I've got paperwork to do to send to the state. Um, I sit down with uh, the Office of the Inspector General, investigator, about what I know, and we share notes. Then I have to go spend time on the wing where this inmate died and do spiritual counseling and advising to all of the inmates that are there. Uh, so my day of being in the message boards yesterday ended up being at work dealing with an inmate death. So you never know the emergencies that are going to come up. You never know the emergencies or what's going to happen. So I do recommend and suggest that you get all of this done as quickly as you can when you can, um, and go from there. Uh, so busy week. Now this morning, I've been dealing with insurance companies. On my way home from work, I got a flat tire. It's just not been a good week for me. So let's get to work, and we're going to share my screen. And this week, we're going to be discussing chapter 5, uh, traffic, police in a country on the move. We are a country that is mobile. Okay, so if you go to the old world, you go to Europe, you go to Russia, um, most people never leave their community. Okay, I drive an hour just to get to work. I drive an hour to get home again. We have tourism. We have people going to different cities. People here in Abilene go, I'm going to go to the city. And they mean Dallas or San Antonio or Austin or Houston. When I was down in uh, Alpine, they said, well, I'm going to the city today. Well, the city was Odessa or Midland or Abilene, okay? Not San Antonio, not the big cities in Texas. So all of this is the same. Um, Citizens of this country feel that it's their right to drive vehicles. It's not, they don't think that it's a privilege. They think that it's a right. They resent any limitations imposed on this right. Um, More officer time is spent on traffic patrol than any other police activity. Police traffic services are divided into three major areas: traffic direction and control, traffic enforcement, and crash investigations. So let's touch back on that again. So, our rights, okay, the First Amendment guarantees us the right to religion, to press, to peaceably assemble, uh, gives us the freedom of speech. Second Amendment gives us the right to keep and bear arms, and that right shall not be infringed. The Fourth Amendment protects us against the rights against unreasonable search and seizure. The Fifth Amendment is the due process clause. It guarantees us the right against self incrimination and guarantees us the right to due process in any criminal activity. The Sixth Amendment guarantees us the right to an attorney and to confront witnesses against us. The Seventh Amendment, I skipped the Third Amendment. Third Amendment does not require, it protects us from military being housed in our homes. The Seventh Amendment is the guarantee for a jury trial. The Eighth Amendment is protections against cruel and unusual punishment. The Ninth Amendment and the 10th Amendments are states' rights, state powers amendments. But somehow we think that having a car, driving a car, is a right that should not be infringed upon. Nowhere in the Constitution do we have the right to travel, or do we have the right to drive and to have a car. Okay, so traffic direction and control is a planned assignment. This requires great nonverbal skills. If you are assigned to uh, direct traffic, it's at an intersection where the lights aren't working. You have to be able to use sign language or hand language. You need to be highly visible. And you have to deal with the cruising problem. Okay, so when I was in high school, we used to cruise. We used to cruise the main drag. I don't know. The screen says that you're out cruising looking for prostitutes. We weren't looking to pay, if you get my drift. Drive-by shootings. All of these things happen in in communities. We drive up and down the drag. We're looking for fun. We're looking for to hang out with friends. We're showing off our cars. We're showing off ourselves. We're bragging. We're looking for races. We're doing all kinds of things. It is something that started in the Americas in the 1950s, and it continues, or it continued through my growing up. Now I'm too old to go cruising, so I don't. You guys will have to tell me in the forums if this is still something that the younger generations do, cruising up and down the drag, or are we so interested in online hookups that we don't think about um, cruising anymore? Not to mention gas is extremely expensive. Okay, so you've also got other problems where people are looking for prostitutes. And then you've got people in cars that are conducting uh, drive-by shootings. There's a lot of things that go on, a lot of things that are happening. And it's important that police direct traffic and they control the traffic scene. So the primary responsibility of traffic enforcement is ALPR, which is the automated license plate recognition. It helps solve crimes. It does a lot of things, traffic violators and violations. We look at seatbelt laws, uh, the click it or ticket motif. In Texas, they used to have, and they still have cameras at every intersection. And what would happen is as soon as the light turned yellow, the cameras would start taking pictures of the license plates that were crossing the road, crossing the light, and mailing tickets. There's no way to prove who was driving the car, but the owner of the car received a ticket because that car ran a red light. But we also have these automated license plate recognition programs to help identify BOLOs, be on the lookout for. They use the automated license plate recognition program for toll roads. If you ever find yourself down here in Texas and East Texas, primarily in the Houston, Austin area, some places in Dallas, we have toll roads. I've not experienced toll roads in Arkansas. I'm not saying that they don't exist. Oklahoma has toll roads. And they use this automated license plate recognition software to take a picture of your license plate so that they can charge you for your tolls. They do the same thing for identifying or looking for suspects in criminality. Okay, we've got seatbelt laws, and it's more than just a seatbelt law. You also have to wear your seatbelt correctly. I know my wife was driving down the road one day, and she's kind of short, and the seatbelt rubbed up against her neck, and it bothered her. So she took the seatbelt and she put it under her armpit because that was more comfortable for the drive. And she still got a ticket, and she still had to pay a $200 fine for not only just for no seatbelt, but she was wearing a seatbelt. It was improperly worn. So make sure that you wear your seatbelts right. Police officers are looking for that strap to come across your shoulder as they go past you. And if you don't have it, they're going to pull you over. Okay, so the primary responsibility, the primary control that traffic enforcement is looking for is the speed limit. Okay, speeding in residential areas. They look for traffic calming, curbing illegal street racing, and street takeovers, using decoy patrols. Odessa does this a lot. They'll just take a police car and they'll put it on the side of the road and they'll leave its lights on. There ain't a single person in the car. You ain't getting pulled over, but the car's there. And because you see the police car, you automatically slow down. And you see this on the interstates where the state troopers are running the interstates. And it helps them slow down traffic because people are not going to speed around the law enforcement officer. And they've got speed enforcement technology. They've got radar guns. They've got GPS. I know when I was with Bluebonnet, we would transport somebody to if we transport somebody to the hospital, or we had to bring them to Wichita Falls or somewhere, they would use GPS censoring. And, if the GPS said that you were speeding, a notification got sent to HR and you got written up. Okay? My insurance company does GPS tracking to qualify for discounts. And it becomes a technology where AI and technology is, taking over the world. We're looking for people that are running red lights. Like I said, the red light cameras, tailgating, aggressive driving and road rage, being in the car and fighting and arguing with a household member, DWIs. They'll set up stings and they'll search. They'll pull over every third car or every car looking for DWIs. They do this primarily around the holidays. You'll see an increased police presence on the 4th of July because this is the 250th anniversary of this country. There's going to be a lot of cops working the 4th of July looking for drunks and DWI. They deal with speeding inside of school zones. Okay. School zones have zero tolerance. Not only in school zones, they're also looking to see if you're using your phone. Most school zones are a no phone area. And if you're caught using your phone, you can get a ticket. because you're distracted driving, and that's a violation. And a lot of people think that they should be able to do whatever they want while they're driving, but that's not the here nor there of it. They really do need to. Um, they really do need to uh, pay attention to what they're doing and what they're driving. Again, I get dings on my insurance premiums if I use the phone while I'm driving. Uh, Emotional encounters. Officers have to have great discretion. There are automated citations. There's e-tickets. There's benefits. There's like a Walmart reader. He reads your driver's license. He reads the barcode on your registration, and your ticket's automatically printed up. Uh, a lot of times there's a dual motive. They'll pull you over because you're speeding or because you crossed the line, and that gave them probable cause to pull you over, but they're actually looking for something else. They're looking for contraband to be in your car. Racial profiling. The traffic stop is where we find the greatest level of complaints about uh, policing, and saying that you're just getting pulled over for DWB or DWH, driving while black or driving while Hispanic. And, there's this claim that you got pulled over because you are in a car. That does not appear to equal the value that he places on you as a human being. For example, an example that I use is you're a police officer and you are at the corner of 3rd and Main, and you see this 22-year-old white kid driving by in a brand new 2026 Escalade. Um, what's your original first thought? Now take that same driver in that same car and make him Hispanic. What's your thought? Now make that Hispanic man a black man or a black woman. And what's your thought uh, about the person and why or how this person could have a brand new Cadillac Escalade, one of the most expensive cars on the road. Okay? You can go Lamborghini, you go to all kinds of other things. And in the past, and I don't know what you answered because we're online, but in the past, when I asked this in class, in a face-to-face class, I get the white guy has a silver spoon. It's daddy's car. Um, the Hispanic and the African American are accused of being in some form of criminality, and that's how they were able to afford $100,000 car. Granted, nobody is in the car. None of the people are in the car because they earned it, because they have created a place to where they can afford $100,000 car. But uh, for the most part, the students that I've spoken to with the Hispanic and the African American or the black person in the car, it always goes to that there's some form of criminality. Recognizing and stopping drivers under the influence. You need to determine the symptoms. Okay. So if you're going excessively slow or excessively fast, you're erratic with your stops and your starts, you're weaving or drifting, you're sliding over the center line, or you're sliding over the into the bar ditch onto the shoulder of the road. These are all symptoms of DWI. If you're failing to use your turn signals, I've driven through Arkansas and I've driven through Texas. Very few people use their turn signals. They're behind you. They expect you, if you're behind them, they expect you to be careful from what they're doing. Problems making turns, repeated use of the horn in traffic because they're impatient, or finding out road rage. And these are all probable cause situations to where you can pull the car over to do further investigation. And now you're going to be looking at slurred speech, unable to maintain eye contact, droopy eyes, and you look at other symptoms of uh, to expand a DWI test or DUI test. And how you do this, you determine the symptoms, is through a field sobriety test or a chemical test. Okay, so you've got the blood alcohol concentration, which is through breath, and Niscabus is another chemical test. You can take a swab and rub the cheek, and you know, and then find, it'll come back, tell me if you're under the influence or not. You need to recognize whether the driver is under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Uh, there is implied consent, and you do need to use your dash cam and your body cam while you're testing these things. Strategies to deter driving while under the influence. You need education and campaign awareness. You can set up sobriety checkpoints, saturation patrols. Like I said, on holidays, you can increase the police presence. You can have drug checkpoints. You can deal with repeat drunk drivers. When I lived in Abilene on Saturday night, all the cops would station outside of the most popular bars. They'd watch you walk out to your car. If you stumbled or swayed, they'd wait till you hit the street and they'd pull you over. They'd investigate you for DWI. Okay, so the legal liability for drinking and driving, there is no excuse. Well, I didn't know I was drunk. If you're drinking, you know you should not be driving. Okay. Well, I waited long enough to drive, and no. Okay, this is you knew that you put a drink to your mouth. You knew that you ingested it, and now you're liable if you get behind the wheel of the car. Well, I didn't think I was 0.08. Well, it doesn't matter. You were drinking, and you were liable for DWI. Okay, so you need to prepare for the possibility of flight. Okay, the suspect will initiate a pursuit, foot pursuit, vehicle pursuit. Foot pursuit, adrenaline kicks in, and will give you a little bit more energy. You need to make sure of safety issues, people running through backyards, through private property. You're going to bump into dogs and all kinds of other things. Yes, you can chase a felon through somebody's private property if you're chasing them. Okay, so vehicle pursuit policies and data are different from city to city. I know there are some cities that said get his license plates. We'll just wait for him at home if their pursuit comes. You're not allowed to pursue or try to do any aggressive tactics if a person's on a motorcycle. You need to check with your local police department to determine the liability issues and the policies and procedures. There's a lot of policies and procedures about what time of day it is, traffic congestion, a lot of things that you need to look into before you start a pursuit. Okay, so there are traffic enforcement and transportation of hazardous materials and weight. You've got weigh stations. This says terminal audits. So there's a weigh station where all commercial vehicles need to pull over and they get weighed. If they're overweight, they have to get another truck. They got to remove some of that weight. Their cargo is inspected. There's other audits that are done on the cargo itself. Road enforcement for the 18-wheelers and for hazardous materials. Certain hazardous materials are not allowed to go through certain communities. You need to, you've seen no hazardous cargo on this road signs. Okay. Technical assistance and enforcement training. They have a specialized group of law enforcement officers who enforce the hazardous materials and the transportation of hazardous materials. And then you got to determine what your emergency response is going to be. Leading cause of death in the United States are crashes involving pedestrians. Okay. Responding to a crash call, a crash investigation and reconstruction, you have to look into all the evidence. You have to determine if this was a fake accident. Well, not necessarily a fake accident, but a orchestrated accident for an insurance claim. You need to make sure that your crash reports are clear and legible. Most crash investigations come with a ticket. Somebody's going to be ticketed for failure to yield the right of way, failure to maintain speed, failure to, there's all kinds of reasons why there might be an accident and where fault lays. The insurance company wants to know whose fault it is. The fact that my car is pancaked, it's the deer's fault, but I got the blame for it because you can't punish a wild animal. In the state of Texas, I was not allowed. Deer are protected. You can only hunt them during a certain time of year. And if you kill one driving down the street, you can't bring it home to collect its meat. Serious problem in many communities. Um, Citizens want to see police on the street. They want to see police patrolling. They want to see police pulling people over. They just don't want the police to pull them over. We have safe community programs that promote community-based solutions. Programs like Neighborhood Watch. Um, they address transportation safety. There's a group, it's community-oriented policing, and you can call the police department and say, hey, this particular car is speeding through the neighborhood every day. So they're going to place officers over there to watch to see if they can catch him doing this. The Sarah model. We've talked about the Sarah model previously, and we do the same thing with traffic. If we see that there's a lot of accidents occurring at 10th and Willis, we're going to address that. So the Sarah model in a little more detail is we scan for a problem. We look for problems, our DWI problems. We look at their speeding problems, our traffic control problems. And we analyze that problem to make sure that it is a problem. Okay? And then we make sure that, and then we look into and see what other communities are doing to address this problem. Okay. And then we create a response. Okay? So if we've got heavy DWI presence coming out of the Midnight Rodeo, or Coyote Uglies, or whatever the bar is, we're going to increase our police presence there. And then hopefully people will not drive and they'll call an Uber, they'll call a cab. They'll find some other way to get home so that they don't find themselves in a world of hurt. And then after you've established the response, you implement the response, and then there's a continual assessment of the response. So let's do something that I have done at the prison. I know this is policing and it's not corrections, but a prison is a micro city. It has its mayor and the warden. It has the chief of police, the mayor. They've got the police officers. They've got the citizens. They've got the nonprofit organizations. They've got the churches. They've got all of these things. Okay. And my prison has a substance abuse problem, as evidenced by the death of an inmate yesterday. So I analyze what other people are doing. I look at what other people are doing because drugs in prison is a significant issue, and it's a serious issue with the overdoses and the number of people who are dying because of fentanyl and K2 every single day. It is really disturbing. Okay. So I've looked at what other prisons have done. And what I've done is I have created a peer recovery team. Yes, I have my volunteers that come in on Thursdays to conduct AA sessions, but I have created a recovery team that goes into the buildings, that part of the city, the part of my city that has the greatest amount of substance abuse problems. And I've established a recovery team. They have AA meetings on Fridays. And then all day Friday afternoon, they send, because the weekends is when we saw the greatest amount of overdoses are occurring on the weekends when we're short staffed and we don't have the staff, to make all the rounds as they're supposed to. So we've got this recovery team on Fridays that go down and they're supposed to visit every house. They're supposed to talk to every inmate about substance abuse. Granted, yes, there's going to be some guys that don't want to hear it. They don't want to have anything to do with it because they'd rather get high. They'd rather stay high, much like this guy yesterday. His cellie told him, "You're not getting high here." Oh, excuse me, long day yesterday. You're not smoking that K2 in my cell. Go somewhere else. So they went upstairs to another cell where they popped the door. They went in there and they smoked. And he said, "Well, I don't feel good. I'm going to lay down a minute." He laid down a minute and he died. So I've established this response. So, but in any response, when you create any response, you have to turn around and look at how are you going to assess this response? And this response that I'm going to assess it as is a decrease in number of ICSs, a decrease in the number of EMS calls, and a decrease in the number of people dying. Well, my team's not working very well at the moment. And on Friday, I'm going to have another chat with them. And there's still this attitude. We can't help them unless they want it. No, you can't help them unless you want it. But you're there to help them. You need to talk to every single inmate. Ask them about their sobriety. Ask them about their drug use. Try to create a discussion with them to help them to find out a plan to help them overcome the substance abuse on the unit. And then you make adjustments based upon that assessment. Okay. An area traffic control officer or the traffic officer program is an innovative program that's been set up in some cities. And it's set to identify and resolve traffic problems. You work with the city manager. Is it necessary to turn a road into a one-way road to help alleviate some of the traffic congestion? But if you're going to have a one-way road going one way, you're going to have another road going one way the other way. And this traffic officer is a single point of contact for the city manager and for roads, so that we can determine the best way to flow traffic. Do we need to create more roads? Do we need to put up stop signs? What stoplights? What things do we need to do to try to make traffic move a little smoother? Okay, and this is to build a close-knit relationship between the business, the city, and the police department. Okay. And they look into proactive measures. They look for long-term solutions. Okay. Sometimes you even have to get the state involved and the Department of Transportation involved because you need to build a road or a bridge. I know there's places in Austin where you've got I-35 going through Austin where it's double deckered. Okay. They've got two bridges. They got the road on the ground. They've got a bridge that's right above the road, and then they've got a bridge that goes over all of it for through traffic. Okay, so if you're not stopping in this part of Austin, you can go up to the third tier and you can just go all the way through. Okay, it just makes life scary to a point. But we have so many people congregating in these big cities that we have to figure out ways to ensure that it is that we've got traffic going and we can have the least congestion as possible, and we can establish and create or help make sure rush hour is not overblown. So the two basic purposes of traffic enforcement are to control congestion and reduce crashes. Enforcement can detect criminal activity such as smuggling and such. Dealing with motor vehicle crashes is another function of traffic services. Okay, so let me close this. All right, so here we go. Let's go into my content screen for week 5. Now let's go to gradebook. I want the week 5 quiz. All right, so here we go. Looking into the assessment for the week 5 quiz. We're still waiting for it to come up. While we're waiting for that to figure itself out, let's go to week 6. We talk about traffic control. So what we have here is our traffic policing, the lecture notes for this week, the web links for outside content to give you sources for your discussions, and our weekly discussion. 3 tests are usually given to determine if a person is under the influence of alcohol while driving: a breath test, a urine test, or a blood test. From the evidence that might be used in court, which test would you favor if you were a police officer? Okay. What are the advantages and disadvantages of each test? I want you to defend your choice of your favorite test. You must submit your original post by Wednesday, respond to two people by Friday, and then move on from there. So, of the 3 tests, the urine test, the blood test, and the breathalyzer, which one is your favorite? Which one do you prefer? What are the advantages and disadvantages of each? So, this could be a rather lengthy post. Get to work on it early. Defend your choice. Okay. Why do you like this one or that one? And use the literature to back up and to support your choice. Okay. Also have a quiz this week. 10 questions. You guys are already familiar with the way that the quiz works. And we go from there. I will get the weekend's discussions graded tonight or tomorrow. There's 2 people that did not take the quiz. I'm one of them, so let me go ahead and give myself a 0. It's posted. Did I not give you a time limit on this quiz? It says that the course average was an hour to finish this quiz. You're supposed to only have 10 minutes. So I should have a whole bunch of perfect scores. Let's see. Average score is an 80 or an 84. Average time spent is 6 minutes and 30 seconds, which is less than 10 minutes. That other screen, I don't know what happened to the other screen. I think that was people spent an hour, averaged an hour on the program. Okay, so most of you thought that this was an easy test. So, which of the following is not specific category in the NCIC's missing persons file? Uh, correct answer was voluntarily missing. Okay. Question 2. It is generally conceded that the backbone of police is the patrol division. Everybody got that right. Good job. Question 3. Vehicle mounted video is used to all of these choices. You all got that right. So this is pretty cool. So it was a pretty easy test, huh? Question 4. Officers are granted discretion when deciding to arrest, except. Correct answer is under statutory provisions. Okay. Even a DWI, you don't have to arrest. You can call somebody and say, "Hey, can you come get this guy? He's drunk. I don't want him." You know. So the statutory provision that comes to mind right away is domestic violence. If you're called with domestic violence and there are observed injuries on one party or the other, somebody's going to jail. And this is statutory in Texas. I don't know if it is in Arkansas. But if it is dictated that there's an arrest, a felony conducted or committed in the presence of a police officer requires arrest. Question 5. Everybody got it right. Foot Patrol has recently made a comeback as police patrol functions largely due to community-oriented policing. Good job. Question 6. All are disadvantages of motorcycle patrol operations except the correct answer is all are disadvantages of motorcycle patrol. There's a high cost of operations. There's limited opportunity to use it. If there's bad weather, you can't use a motorcycle. And then the safety of the officer. He is sitting on top of this horse, this iron horse. He is subject for ambush or assault. Motorcycle cops are cool, but the gas for a motorcycle doesn't cost as much, and it goes a lot further. But there's training, there's the upkeep of the motorcycles, there's all kinds of things. It does make it extremely expensive, and then you've got to get additional insurance. Motorcycle insurance costs a whole lot more than car insurance. Question 7. Research has shown consistently that automobile patrol effectively prevents crime. And as we have all discussed over the weekend or over the week, no, it does not. The correct answer was false, and all of you got that right. Question 8. Knock and talk is where an officer knocks on a resident's door and asks if they could just talk. The answer is true. This is part of community-oriented policing. You just go knock on the door, and I challenge you, if you're already a police officer or if you are wanting to become a police officer, to get out of your car and to talk to the citizens that you're policing. It will make a big difference in the trust that we have between the community and the police. And, if you've built established this relationship, it's likely that when criminality is going on, they're going to be willing to talk to you. Split force patrol is a technique based on preventative patrol that maintains continuous police presence to deter criminal activity. This is also true. This was split half and half. So the split force patrol technique maintains a continuous police presence. Uh, yes, that's true. In that we split up our force so that we can have a greater level of. Hold on a second. Hello, this is John Fisher. Yes.